Well, the Baseball Forward podcast. Today's episode and guest is Dax Powell. Dax Powell, for those of you listening to the Baseball Forward podcast today, in this episode, Dax Powell and I go way back. And I remember meeting Dax in 2006 when I was living out in California. I flew out to Dallas, was inquiring about some baseball, becoming involved in a life in baseball. And Dax is one of the first guys that I met in Dallas, and I was like, "Dang, I like this dude. He's a special guy." Dax, welcome to the Baseball Forward podcast, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on, man. It's really good to see your face.
Heck yeah, man. Dax and I used to coach at Parish Episcopal. We coached some select stuff and everything together. So if you're ever around the guy, and I know I can't wait to release this episode because I know the circles that I run in, everybody's going to see you and they're going to say the same thing that I'm going to say. Dax. So looking good, my friend. I love the facial stuff you got going on. Hey, we're in the fall. Dax is the owner operator of 3D Baseball based out of Pottsboro in Grayson County. This guy has he's just put it this way. If Dax has his own podcast someday, I won't be surprised. He's a guy that's going to be able to talk. So in my role on this is kind of to ask the questions and then shut up and let him go. So, but I'm going to be selfish with what I talk about today and what Dax and I discuss. Dax, I want to start with this, man. You have one of the most unique, baseball backgrounds, and I'm gonna leave details out, but I want you to fill it in, and I want you to give the audience some perspective. Dax grew up in Grayson County. He played for OU. He went to OU first. Is that right?
That's correct.
Then he went to Texas. He's a left-handed pitcher. He's one of those thumbers that had the cock build, the sideways hat, I'm sure. But the dude he was a dude. But he pitched at OU. He pitched at Texas. He's been to the Connie Mack World Series. He's been to the Junior College World Series, and he's been to the College World Series. Dax, I'm going to let you take it from there. What did I miss?
Yeah, that's pretty funny that you say that, because people ask me all the time, like, how could you possibly transfer from OU to Texas? I grew up in Texas. I really wanted to go to Texas. They didn't really recruit me much, but OU recruited me a ton. I played the pitching coach at Oklahoma at the time was a guy by the name of Vern Ruhle. After my sophomore year, Vern literally went from Oklahoma to the big leagues with the Astros as a pitching guy. That was the reason that I went to Oklahoma. Was, I'd gotten drafted out of high school. I was a late draft pick. The guy that drafted me was like, "Hey, if you get a chance to go pitch for Vern Ruhle, you need to go do that." So I'm glad that you kind of brought him up, because I was thinking about influential guys, in my career, and Vern is way up there. But I did. I transferred to Texas. I'd actually beat Texas twice the year before. I had buddies that played at Texas. When they found out that Vern left, they called and they're like, "Hey, transfer down here." And I was like, that was my dream, was to play at the University of Texas. There was no way I could obviously pass that opportunity up. There was no transfer portal or anything crazy back then. But if you did transfer from one conference to the other, you didn't have to sit out a year. And I'm old enough that in 3 consecutive years, I played in the Southwest. I played in the Big 8 first, then the Southwest Conference, then the Big 12.
Dang, dude.
Combined up. And I was very fortunate. I got to play for Larry Cochell, who was there at Oklahoma.
Legend. Yep.
Played for, Coach Gus, and then Coach Garrido. There's so many coaches that we'll talk about as we go through this that I've been blessed to be with, but on the college stage, it doesn't get much better than those 3 guys. So as for playing wise, I was very, very, very fortunate.
Let me ask you this. Okay. So you're at OU, and I know who Vern Ruhle is, obviously a very well-known pitching guy. Gosh, there's so many things I want to know about so many directions I could take it, but I want to say this first. Vern Ruhle in particular, what made him such a good pitching coach? What resonated with you? What did he teach you that maybe we can pass along to the next generation?
I think he had such good experiences, he pitched in the big leagues for a long time. And my goal was to get to the big leagues. And
Mhm.
I had him there beside me to help guide me along. And I just think like his ability to not be cookie cutter, like you
Mm.
have to do this mechanically, you have to do that. He was very good at taking your body type, and just getting the best out of every single guy that we had. And we all did it different ways. Nobody was on the exact same routine. I mean, he was just really good about, hey, if this works for you, go do it. And he just worked with each one of us individually. And I think that has helped me a ton as a coach and training kids and doing what we do now. Is there's not just one way to do this. There's different ways for us to work with kids and, getting to know their personalities and, hey, what works with them. I'm a firm believer in, hey, we have to have routines that we go through to get us prepared to do, go play in a game or go pitch, get ready to hit. Like there are routines that we do, but not everybody has to be exactly the same.
I agree so much. And you know what? One thing I always admired you when I got into coaching, I was young and fresh and getting into coaching. I got to be around you. I was around Brett McCabe. I tell myself I was around some pretty good dudes at that level that we were at. And one thing I always admired from you was the way you interacted with the kids. I felt like you had uh, like a true care for who you were dealing with. So it's kind of safe to say that you had the mentors in the Vern Ruhle types to see that not everybody was the same. I'm going to treat everybody a little bit differently. Is that kind of fair to say?
I would 100%. And that's just the way that I've always gone about it. I try to tell people all the time, like when they come in and kids like take lessons and stuff with us, like they will literally tell us things that you as a parent have
Mm,
no idea about. Because we develop those relationship with those kids. And hey, at the end of the day, coaching kids, you have to show them more now probably than ever. You have to show them that you do care. And once they figure out that you really do care about them, they're going to buy in and they're going to do with the things that we ask them to do.
that's a fact. So sitting where you're at now, what's the most satisfying thing? I mean, you run 3D baseball up in Pottsboro. You're a hands-on guy. You are around so many different kids on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. What's the most satisfying thing to you as a coach and a guy who runs an organization?
Well, I don't think that it's the gratification necessarily right then for me.
Mm,
I think it's what I see them do later on in life.
heck yeah.
For example, Tanner Devaney is getting
Mm,
married tonight. You know what I
oh,
mean?
heck
Like
yeah.
when those guys that you coached as kids ask you to come back and be with them on an important date, whatever it is, that's really the most satisfying thing to me. And I try to tell people all the time, I have coached, I don't know, I probably need to go tally it up, but a lot of kids that have played in the big leagues. And that's cool. Like I love watching Tyler Alexander, you know,
Squirrel.
yeah, like I love watching him pitch. I think that that's great. Billy McKinney, you
Mm,
and I have had him too. Like I love watching those guys play, but it's really cooler to go see what they do later on in life and know that, hey, we had an influence to help them achieve whatever they're doing. I'm
man.
also getting to the age now where kids that I coached are now coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird walking onto a
Yeah, it
field.
is.
Hey, I used to coach him and now I'm trying to beat him. Uh, but,
Uh,
but I mean, you have a role in them deciding that, hey, one day they want to be a coach.
Isn't that crazy? And you'll hear it. They'll say it's almost hard to hear it back because you love the game so much. I love the game so much. Like, I couldn't imagine my life outside of something to do with baseball. I imagine you're the same way, but you give, and then it's like early on in your career, you're planting seeds, and then you're watching these guys blossom, and you nailed it. It's like watching players become men and what they do and how they treat people and the way they interact with the kids coming up. I mean, some of those guys that we used to coach when you and I first started coaching, dude, 29, 30, 31 years old, older, and they've already gone on and they've had their careers and they're coaching. I mean, I talked to Pat Day the other day on the podcast, and he's coaching in recruiting coordinator at Ranger College. So I love hearing that perspective, Dax, because it doesn't surprise me. The relationships that you have, you easily one of the most charismatic, dynamic individuals that I've been around in the game. I'm also going to say this. I'll lead into this. This dude throws the best batting practice in the history of mankind. You know what I think I'm going to do, Dax, one of these days for all the coaches, because I got to watch him throw, and I'd be like, just do it the way he does it. Do it the way he does it. I'm gonna go make a recording of you someday, and we're gonna do lessons on how to throw BP. I want to say this to the audience. You threw BP, a left-handed BP, to the Texas Rangers. Tell us about that experience, man.
You know, that's one of those deals where I just feel like, man, you just happen to be at the right place at the right time. So I was actually, after I got through playing, had Tommy John, I was coaching at Grayson Junior College with Tim Tadlock.
Yep.
We had a scout day, right there towards the end of the season, kind of like a little pre-draft workout before they really did pre-draft workouts. Anyway, they got through throwing. The Rangers scout was there, and it's kind of weird. They were looking for a AA starter. Well, back then, I was still in my early 20s. Coach Tadlock was like, you need to look at Dax.
Wow.
I was sitting there coaching. He's like, you need to look at him. So he gets me up there. I throw a bullpen for him, and he goes, hey, I'm not kidding. I'm going to turn your name in. Here I am. I'm 26 years old. I'm like, anyway, long story short, they ended up making a trade. They found a AA starter, but the scout goes, hey, can you throw good BP? I said, well, heck, I feel like I've been throwing BP my whole life. And he goes, the big league club is looking for somebody to come in, throw left-handed batting practice. They didn't have a left-handed coach on the staff.
Are you there, Dax?
Black. There we go.
There we go. We're good. Resume. They didn't have a left-handed arm or coach on staff.
Yeah. So I go down one day to go throw batting practice. I can't remember the guys that I threw to this particular day. It was a bunch of the reserve guys. I got them throwing. They were like, hey, the guys like your batting practice. Can you come back tomorrow? We need you to throw to Juan Gonzalez, Pudge, Rafi, those guys, because those are the guys that are going to be playing every day. I go back the next day. It's on a Sunday. I go back, throw early batting practice to those guys. They get done. They're like, hey, they love your batting practice.
Love it.
Is there any way you could go to New York tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yep, let's go.
So my first road trip with them was Boston and New York.
Pause. Tell me that somewhere, I know you're a cool dude, but tell me somewhere inside of you were like, what? I'm a little bit, whoa. I got to go throw BP at Yankee Stadium in Fenway?
Well, so at first I didn't really realize that. You know what I mean? You're just, hey, we're going to hop on a plane. We're rolling out this afternoon after the game. So I'd run home, grab clothes, come back to the ballpark, hop on this plane. And it didn't set in until literally I'm throwing batting practice in Yankee Stadium, and I'm going, what is going on here? Because my dream was obviously to pitch there one day, right?
Right.
Like that's all of us. We all want to pitch at Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
Well, I didn't get to do that as a player, but then I got to go back and do that, as a coach. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty stinking cool.
That is amazing.
So I was very fortunate. Like I said, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. I was on that, young coach, thought I was going to get a Division I job within the first few years of coaching. No, that didn't happen. I found out the work ethic and stuff like that you have to do to get to that level. It takes time. And I was like, hey, I'm instant. Like, I want to do it right now. And like I said, I just very fortunate, like I said, I got to go be with them for 13 years. I've been to just about every stadium.
That's so cool.
In the big leagues. And, you talk about being around good people and good players, obviously.
Who's the best? What's the best swing you feel you've ever thrown to?
Probably the two best hitters. I'll go one right-handed, Michael Young.
Ooh.
That guy, he didn't care. Like, you threw it up there, he hit it. He did not care. And then Rafael Palmeiro. Wow.
Beautiful.
That guy, it was unbelievable. Like, he's the only hitter that just like really comes to mind. Like, he never hooked a ball foul. Like, you could throw him a ball or two in off the plate and he could still keep that sucker fair.
Wow.
He was the best. And then later on, like throwing to Josh Hamilton, like Adrian Beltre, Elvis, all of those guys, it just, memories that I'll never give any of that stuff back. Like, just once again, I just happen to be lucky, just kind of right place, right time. But, the coaches and stuff that were involved in all of that, like, there's so many of those guys that were unbelievable. I started with Buck Showalter.
One of the best.
And, he and I we had a really close relationship. While I was actually with them, I would have to go and chart pitches and stuff like that. And then before he would talk to the press, he and I would come through and go through those charts. The most detailed man I've ever heard, just super detailed.
Give me an example of what that looks like. We're talking big royalty right here. So when you're sitting down with Buck Showalter going over pitch charts, what are you talking to him about? What information are you relaying? What is he asking for?
So, we get the pregame reports. Hey, Ross Hawley is, 88 to 92 with his fastball. He's going to throw a 2-seam, 4-seam. His slider is going to be 83 to 86. Changeup's going to be 82 to 84.
Okay.
We would get those. I'd go chart that night. Well, if somebody wasn't what they said in the pregame meetings, Buck was on a scout's butt. Like, hey, this is not right. You're not doing your job, basically.
Wow.
He was that detailed with stuff. And he made me so much better just paying attention to detail, and then the work ethic that it takes to be where he was. He was the first to show up, the last to leave, almost every single day. And some of my characteristics still are from him. Like, he didn't waver on how he coached. He was going to be stern. He had expectations, and he expected you to live up to those. And if you didn't, they were releasing guys.
Wow.
So
that's the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I love hearing that.
And then I went from him to Ron Washington, total opposites, both very successful, but did it totally different ways. Ron was, open door policy, come hang out. He was very good with his players, like loved on them all the time. He was loving on those guys, had very high expectations, but, loved on those guys too. Like, I see the videos and stuff that Ron has done, it shows him working with, different infielders on drills and stuff like that. He was the manager, and he literally, he would make Adrian Beltre go out there and do that stuff. Elvis would have to go out there and work with Wash. I mean, that was just part of his program with those guys. And so whenever I see that stuff, like that's not just hogwash for him to put out there on the internet. Like he literally gets in there and he would grind with those guys every single day. And I think that just made them respect the heck out of him.
I think that's a big thing though, Dax. Like, and I think you can relate to this. But I mean, when you were coaching at Grayson, and to any extent, I think that like high school age players, even the middle school age players, they want to know that if you're telling them something and you have an expectation of how physically they're supposed to move or throw it or swing it, they want to have an expectation that you know how to do it and you did it. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think that's huge, because, we ask the kids to do stuff and they want to know, like, why is he telling me to do this stuff? Well, it's because I've seen guys, this is just my personal experience. I've seen guys at a really high level work and do this stuff. Like, with my infielders, like we work on our footwork and stuff all the time about, just making sure that their footwork is correct, doing it the right way. And the only reason that I know that it's that important is because I saw those guys at a really high level work at that stuff very detailed all the time. And I've seen, a couple of your other podcasts and you talk about work ethic and stuff like that. People don't realize how hard those guys actually work.
Yeah.
I try to explain to kids all the time, like those guys literally show up at the field at like 2:00.
Yep.
They'll go in, they'll go lift, get all their weight stuff done for the day, get their treatments. Then they start into their routine of, hey, hitting off a tee underneath, the stadium. They're hitting off a tee, doing all their front toss, working with their specific coach. And then everybody gets to see the fact that they go out, take batting practice, and, do all those kind of things. Same way with the pitchers. They're coming in early. They'll do PFPs once a week or so, work on their pickoffs. They'd have to routines that they have to go through also. And I just don't think people understand the work ethic that it takes to get to that level. And it's hard to explain that to kids these days. Like, you have to put in the time, and it's a lot of time when nobody else is looking.
That's right. You know what? Hey, I was having a conversation with my son yesterday, and we were talking this past weekend, and he didn't like his results. Okay, he didn't like the results he was getting, but the previous week or two, he really wasn't putting in work. Okay, and we let him. My wife and I let him. Express that he felt embarrassed, is what he said, and he has a really good swing, good. He's a good looking little player, and we were explaining to him that just because you have the talent, it doesn't always translate onto the field. The preparation and the work is what translates onto the field. And I'll say this. I had the conversation with him yesterday. We went out and did some tee work after school and for 20, 25 minutes, but it was minimal conversation, lots of reps, hyper focused on like keeping the head down on the baseball, just some very basic things. And we got done and, oh man, you could just see his posture was better. He felt better about himself. He felt confident. When you're talking about work ethic, Dax, from what you see and all your experiences with it, like I told him yesterday, I'm like, dude, it takes 20 minutes a day, 20, 25 minutes a day, just as a 10-year-old. Just go swing. Jim Schwanke says, just go move as a hitter. Go do something. Is that what, like, when we're talking about the younger guys, the 10, 11, 12, 13, the guys that maybe don't quite love the game or their sport yet, is the work ethic just going out and being active?
I think that's a lot of it. Just go do something. And I try to explain to the kids, it took y'all 20 minutes to probably go take close to 50 swings.
Yep.
Maybe more, whatever. But you can find 20 minutes in your day. It doesn't have to be hitting off a tee. It doesn't have to be front toss. I love that Schwanke said that. Like, just go swing.
Yep.
Go get 50 swings in. And, you take 50 swings for 5 days. It's 250 swings. Do that 4 weeks. You've taken 1,000 swings this week.
That's right.
12,000 swings in a year. Think about how far you're going to be ahead of other kids. And my oldest, I have a 14-year-old stepson. His name's Dax, actually.
Nice.
But he puts that work in, and people don't understand, like, man, how's he so good on the weekends? And he's not great. Like, he's not big. He is pretty strong, but he's not the best player athletically. He's not super gifted, but he loves to just go and work. And that's just like, I can't explain, enough to the kids. Just showing up to your practice twice a week for an hour and a half, which is the majority of what people do these days, that's not going to be enough. When you get yourself prepared for high school and you look around and the other guys, I'm telling you, other people are out there doing it. And it's just a big deal, just trying to instill that in the kids these days.
I told him, because it was my stepson too, when I was talking to, his name is Kaiser. And I told him, I said, Kaiser, who's hitting behind you? Who's hitting in front of you? Worry about those guys. I said, I'm not going to name the kids' names, but I said, the kid hitting behind you, are you outworking him today? If you are, then you're staying ahead of him. If you're not, you're staying even with him. The kid in front of you, what do you think he's doing today? So we try to explain it, say, hey, I'm embarrassed that I'm hitting in this spot. Well, that's good. You should, being embarrassed is a good thing, because that means you care, right? But what are you going to do to go earn and take the spot that you want? I want to get into something, because dude, you and I haven't, we have such, gosh, we've known each other almost 20 years now, but I want to bring up the name Jack Giese, because I feel like I want to take the opportunity to talk about Jack Giese. What I remember of Jack Giese was he's one of the kindest, coolest, knowledgeable, man, he was a special guy. And Jack passed recently. And so rest in peace to Jack Giese. I know he was one of your best friends, if not your best friend. I just want to say the name Jack Giese, and I want to give you the floor with Jack Giese.
Man, what you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just a very good baseball guy. Like, just a good baseball guy. He was probably one of the best pitching guys that I've really been around. He came and lived with me for 6 weeks before he passed away, and he worked with some kids up here, and we literally talked about him yesterday with some of the kids. That's the kind of influence that he had on kids. He just had that gift of, hey, he was really good at pitching, but he could translate to the kids. His death obviously shocked us all. But he left a lasting impression on a lot of people. And I'm glad that you mentioned him too. We're actually hosting a memorial tournament up here in Grayson County, November the 2nd and 3rd for the youth guys. That's an NCS tournament. He did leave 2 daughters and 3 grandkids. So we're going to try to do something to help give back to those guys. He's got one of his grandkids, little name is Cal.
Cal?
Cal. Yeah. 7 years old, left-handed hitter. He can absolutely rake. So it's awesome. Like I said, we're going to try and do some stuff to help give back to his family.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, rest in peace, Jack Giese. And I just know this, anyone he touched that I got to talk to, in love with the guy, and all the kids Jack Giese. So Jack Giese, rest easy, my friend. Let's move on to something a little bit more upbeat, Dax. I know you want to. I'm curious with, I got to stop saying that. I'm curious. I want to know as you were coming up as a young player, and man, you were a lefty, you had the talent, and you had a fantastic playing career. You've had a heck of a coaching career and just a life in baseball. What do you wish you would have known coming up as a baseball player? What do you wish you would have known then that you know now about the game of baseball?
Gosh, I would have done things so much different, as we all probably would have, right?
Sure.
But you know what? Everybody always told me how good I was. Everybody just, in high school, it was a breeze. I had no problems.
Mm,
Summer baseball, same thing. I just pretty much kind of cruised through there. And what nobody told me is at some point, you're going to run up against people that are as good or better than you. And you are going to fail at some point. It's not just going to be easy breezy all the way through. And nobody really told me that. Everybody just kind of was like, hey, you're going to pitch for a long time. Nobody told me about the fact, hey, you may end up getting injured and you may have Tommy John and baseball be taken away from you. Nobody prepared me for that.
wow.
I would say the other thing that I really try to instill on the kids these days more than ever is getting in the weight room.
Mm,
I think that we do a lot of baseball training, hitting, pitching, fielding, throw. We do a lot of that, but the kids do not put the time in the weight room the way that they should. And I was guilty of that too.
same.
Back whenever, in the mid 90s, lifting at the time was a little bit almost taboo,
Yeah.
especially for pitchers.
Yep.
Well, one of the first things that I realized, whenever I got to work at the very, at the high level, those guys lifted all the time. So, I would go to the trainers and be like, hey, why are they lifting so heavy, for example, on a game day? And he would explain to me how, they would lift real heavy and then they would go out and play. Their bodies would break down when they go play.
Mm,
Well, if you just maintain the weight, you plateau and then you go play the next day and then your body goes back down, plateau, go down. And he was like, no, we've got to get them back up so they can continue to perform
yep.
on that level. So that's the biggest thing. Like I really try to instill in the guys now, like once your body starts to mature, you have to go fall in love with that weight room also.
Yeah.
I just think that that's huge. One of the things that we haven't been doing a good job of even up here is we haven't done a great job with the speed, agility, and the weight training. But we're going to starting next month, we're actually going to implement that into our program here. So our guys, even at a young age, no, they're not going to be doing a ton of lifting and stuff like that, but they are going to see, how to get faster, how to get some stronger body weight wise. So when it is time for them to, hit that weight room, they're ready to roll. Like we want those guys, like it's good. You go look at the kids in the Big 12, in the SEC.
Yes, sir.
Go to a local junior college game.
Yes.
We're fortunate here in Grayson because we have such rich tradition here, but go look at those guys. They're not little bitty skinny. They're grown men that have put in, some of them are learning to put in the time of that weight room. So I just think that that's a big deal for our youth today. They have to go get to be as strong as they can possibly be. When I was in high school, I was 5'11". I weighed 155 pounds.
Me too, man.
You know what I mean? So I was always scared to go in the weight room because I was weaker than the other guys.
Sure.
But obviously as time went on, I figured out it's not about being the strongest person in that room. It's being as strong as you can possibly be pound for pound for yourself.
And the confidence it gives you knowing that you prepared the best to become the best version of yourself just in this moment right now. Like, because it's selfishly, I want to know it with your experiences. What's the best playing experience that you remember as a guy? Like, what comes to mind when I say Dax? What was the best feeling you ever had when you were on a field because of the work, your experience? Maybe not necessarily team experience, but what was the best memory for you?
Ooh, there's a couple. One of the coolest things for me was when I transferred from Oklahoma to Texas. Uh, we weren't in the same conference, so it was a midweek game. I didn't typically pitch midweek, but I went to Coach Gus. I was like, Coach Gus, I was like, if there's any way possible I can pitch when we go back to Oklahoma, I want to do that. I really do. So we go back to Oklahoma and play. He lets me go up. No guarantees you're going to pitch. Anyway, we get late in the game. It's like the 7th inning. He tells me, he's like, hey, Dax, go start getting loose.
Yep.
So I do. Long story short, I come in, bases loaded. There's 2 outs. I was really good against left-handed hitters.
Yes, sir.
I throw my warm-up pitches. Nothing's said. I don't really hear much going on. They announce my name, and I'd never been booed in my life before. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I like these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I didn't leave Oklahoma because I hated Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I left because the pitching coach left, right? So then I look up and my roommate that I had the year before is at the plate. So
what was his name?
Brian Shackelford. Played in the big leagues.
Yeah.
One of the few guys that he was actually a punter also for the football team, but full count, I strike him out. That was a very cool moment.
What'd you strike him out with? Slider, fastball?
Oh, fastball, actually.
Yeah.
3-2 fastball. Nice. And then, hey, pitching in the College World Series, you can't, for an amateur, it doesn't get much better than that. And just like you kind of said a little bit at the beginning, for an amateur kid getting to go to Farmington and pitching in the Connie Mack World Series, there's not much better than pitching. They usually get somewhere probably between 7,000 and 12,000 a night. Yeah. That's pretty special.
Yeah, it
pretty
is
special to get to the opportunity to do that also.
Talking with Dax Powell on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Dax, I appreciate you joining us, man. I could sit here and talk to you forever, so I'm trying to be cognizant of our time. We got about 10, 15 minutes left. I'm going to squeeze everything I can out of you for this episode, but I'm going to put you on record right now. You're going to come back and we're going to talk more. Deal?
For sure.
All right, man. You run 3D baseball in Pottsboro. You're impacting a ton of lives up in the Grayson County area for baseball, young lives. I want to know what your advice is to young coaches, like coming up and wanting to impact the game the right way. What is your advice to the young coaches out there coming up?
I think that try and surround themselves by good people. You know this as well as I do. Like, I have met so many good people in this game. I've met so many. My wife and kids make fun of me all the time because we go out and I see people all the time. And my stepson's like, do you know everybody? And I'm like, no, but I've always taken pride in, being a good person. And I say this all the time. I'm like, or my wife, they'll make fun of me. They're like, hey, let me guess, that's a good dude. And I'm like, yeah, he is a good dude. And if I don't say that, then they know that there's a major alarm going off right there. But I think surround yourself by good people. Figure out like what is your craft, what's your style, and roll with that. Be willing to make adjustments. But like for myself, like I'm still, if you want to call it old school, that's fine. I don't call it old school. I call it being an adult, getting kids prepared for the real world. I'm going to hold kids accountable. Like they're going to be held accountable. If you can't do the things that we ask you to do that we've worked on over and over and over again,
Right.
you don't get to play.
That's right.
We sugarcoat so much of this stuff these days, and that's not preparing kids for the real world. My wife is the assistant superintendent up here in Pottsboro, and
What's her name? Give her a shout out.
It's Danielle Powell.
Danielle. Shout out to Danielle Powell. I knew her name, by the way. I just wanted you to say it.
Dr. Danielle Powell.
Dr. Powell.
Yes. So, she deals with that type of stuff every day, holding those kids in the district, their teachers, holding everyone accountable. And if you're not going to live up to the standard that they want, then they're going to have to do something different. And that's the way it is in the real world.
Yep.
Not just in baseball, but just in life. If you're in a job and you're not getting your job done, they're going to find somebody that will. And I think that, we have to continue to get on our kids and let them understand that, hey, this is the way it really is. Let
me ask you this, because man, I see it so much at a younger age, and I want your wisdom on like in helping coaches coach, right? Do you have regrets that maybe maybe some coaches, because it's not about your ego anymore. It's not about pride and all this. You're a humble man at this point, and you've been there, done that. Do you have regrets that you look back that maybe you could relay or relate to somebody out there that's listening to this, that maybe they can say, oh, okay, maybe I need to chill on that? Do you have any regrets with your coaching career?
I don't know if it's necessarily regret. I've learned a lot. And I'll go back to a situation that we had with Brett McCabe one time. It was very important for him to be at an event that we had. Well, he didn't want to do that event. He wanted to stay home and be with his family because we spent so much time coaching. Well, at the time, I'm single, don't have any kids, and I didn't understand the importance of, hey, I need to have time with my family too. I'll tell you, like, one of the best things that I ever learned was Jeff Banister. He would always tell his coaches, don't you ever miss anything that your kid is playing or doing to be here at the field. Wow. And that really set big with me. And I try to translate that to coaches all the time. I'll go back. You had Dusty Hart on a couple of weeks ago, and Dusty and I actually coached together at Grayson for a while. And I'll never forget, like, one day we're sitting there, it's the fourth group of batting practice. We've got 15 minutes maybe of practice left. And he keeps looking at his watch. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, my son is about to play football. This is in the fall. My son's about to play football. I'm like, Dusty, get out of here. Like, go watch your son play, because you don't get that time back. The other coaches here can handle the last 10 minutes of batting practice and getting these guys out of here. So I think that's a huge thing that I learned, that, it took me a little bit. Nobody really had kind of walked me through, hey, it's very important to make sure that you take care of your family first.
Yeah.
So that, that was big. I know, speaking of Texas football, but Steve Buechele was the third base coach for the Rangers.
Yep.
His son was the quarterback at Texas.
Wait, Garrett Buechele, is that what it was?
I don't remember if Garrett was Shane
Buechele. Yeah.
Garrett was third baseman at Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
By the way, their entire family went to Oklahoma except for Shane. But they would literally, like, they would play at 2:30 in Austin. They would literally fly a jet down there, flying down there, let him watch his kid.
Wow.
Flying back and having back by 7:00 to go coach third base, because that's how important it was to Coach Banister for them to be with their families and not miss their kids' stuff because they had to, be at the ballpark at a certain time. That was one of the biggest things.
It's priorities, right? It's priorities, right? And you know something that I always appreciated about you when I was coming up as a coach is there really wasn't an ego with you. You like I think there's a lot of guys that will have good playing careers. I mean, I could say the same. I mean, I played Division I, drafted, whatever, pro ball. You never had an ego. You were always approachable, and you always wanted to help. Um, and I think it's important for young coaches that have access to guys like you to like drop the ego. It's not a peeing contest. Um, it's baseball, man. We love the game. Like, let's not make this about anything other than helping the kids and just drop the ego because the point I'm trying to make is you have guys like this. We live in North Texas, man. There is an extremely knowledgeable baseball human being on every corner of every street in this area. And I think as young coaches, accept the talent or accept the knowledge that's around you and like let it become a superpower for you and let it fuel you as a coach. When I say that, do you have any feedback on that comment?
Well, and my wife gets on to me all the time because, we'll have our tryouts and I'll kind of go through my bio and I don't really talk about it much. It's not my playing career anymore.
I get it.
Like, I'm literally here for these kids.
Yep.
That's it. I'm here for the kids. My playing career is 100% done. It's been done for a long time. So I think that as a young coach, like you said, put your ego aside. You don't know everything there is to know about baseball. I still to this day, like I go to ABCA, I want to be surrounded by other people that do things a certain way so I can continue to soak up knowledge. This game changes all the time. And I could be stuck coaching the way I did 20 years ago, or I can keep up with the times and surround myself by people that can help coach me. You talked about my organization a little bit. Like I have dads that coach a lot of our teams. Well, we do organizational workouts where I can go and coach my coaches on how to run practices, things that they need to do to prepare themselves to get ready for a game. That's a huge thing for me. Like I think, like you said, put your egos aside. It's not about you anymore. Let's continue to make kids the best we can make these kids. Schwanke did a great deal talking about how, he would combine up with another team and go practice, So that's, my 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds are on one field. I got 10s, 11, 12s on another and 13s and 14s on another. So we can actually run, good.
A high functioning practice.
That's right. I actually had a guy, we're up in Pottsboro, which is right on the border between Texas and Oklahoma. One of the coaches from Oklahoma kind of saw what we were doing. It's another dad. And he's like, hey, do you think there's any way we could come down and practice with you guys and then play a game after? I'm like, absolutely. So in a couple of weeks, we're gonna actually do that. His guys are gonna come down. We're gonna work out for an hour and a half, and then we're gonna play for an hour and a half because he wants to see, hey, how's that guy doing that? So I can make my practices, efficient too. And I think that needs to be the goal.
I love that, and that is such a good example of kids first. Let's find a model that works. So let's find an efficient model that is the best for the team. And Dax, your phone's blowing up, bruh. Just silence your text messages.
I'm not sure how to do that.
No, I'm joking. Don't worry about it. We'll hear the ding. You take your phone and just hit silence. I think. I don't know. Anyway, couple more minutes here, Dax. Man, I'm just thoroughly enjoying you talking to Dax Powell of 3D Baseball on the Baseball Forward podcast. Dax, 2 more questions for you. You talked about Vern Ruhle earlier. I want to know this: greatest influences on your baseball career.
It started at home. My mom and dad, they were just very supportive of everything I wanted to do baseball wise, super supportive. And I tell people all the time, like my dad, I was very fortunate. I didn't have a ton of like tough games or whatever, but my mom and dad like never got on to me about anything on the ride home. Like and that didn't just go for baseball. That was for all sports. They just were there to help support. And I think that's huge these days. Don't hop in the car and harp on your kid about the game that they just had. I tell my son every day, and I don't even really remember who taught me. Like, I just tell him it was so much fun watching you play today.
Man.
And it's amazing how sometimes that will trigger a conversation that, like I would really love for him, for football, for example, I'd really love to go and say, hey, you missed this guy on a pass or that guy. We could sit there and talk about that. But if I just tell him, hey, I loved watching you play, he go, thanks for being there. And then he'll be like, hey, did you see that pass that I missed? And then we can have that conversation. It wasn't on me. It was on him.
That's good. That's good.
The ride home, I think that's big. I want people to really just do a good job on the ride home. Love on those kids. Love on those kids' coaches. Don't be bad-mouthing the coaches on your ride home.
Yep.
That's a big deal. So it started at home with my parents. And then just, all of those coaches, I had Buck Showalter, Ron Washington, Jeff Banister, and then I got to work alongside Rudy Harmelio, Clint Hurdle, Dave Magadan. We were talking about unbelievable hitting guys. And then Oral Hershiser from a pitching standpoint. I mean, there's just not a smarter man than that. And then, Mike Maddox is there with the pitchers now. And, just a great, bright mind. Tony Beasley, who's coaching third base.
Love him. Yeah, such a good dude.
And, for me, like I've always just tried to take characteristics from each of those and put that into my piece of the puzzle.
And you have been doing a fantastic job of it, my friend. Last thing, baseball forward. Our motto is elevating the next generation of ball players and coaches. I want your advice on what your advice would be to the next generation of ball players coming up. What's your advice to elevate the next generation of baseball players?
Well, first of all, I think that they should turn the diamond around. I think we should go the other way. I think we should go from home to third to second to first. That way all the left-handers can play all the positions. Wouldn't that be cool?
Dude, yeah, only you freaking weirdo lefty.
Yes, just turn the field around. How cool would that be?
Dude,
and then right-handers would be like, oh man, we have a right-hander? That's great.
I wasn't expecting that. That's fantastic.
But I just for the next generation, like I know they're making a lot of changes to the game these days. With the pitch clock, I think before too long, I do think that hitters are going to be able to challenge a ball strike call. I do. I think that's coming here soon. I just think like, hey, your work ethic, what you put into this game is what you're going to get out of it.
That's right.
And I work harder now than I ever did in the game as a player. And it literally was because nobody told me, if you want to play in the big leagues, this is how much work it takes. And I wish that every kid would get to play in the big leagues. I tell people all the time, it's like fantasy land up there playing in front of those crowds every night, and just take the money aspect, away. Those guys are making millions and millions of dollars, life-changing money. I wish that somebody would have told me, this is how hard you have to work and get after it if you really want to get to that big stage.
That is really good stuff, Dax Powell. Man, you're coming back. Heck, you're going to come back probably more than one more time. I got just so much to talk about, but I'm going to leave it at this today. I am so thankful for you. I'm so thankful to have you as a friend. I'm so thankful to have had you around my development as a coach. I probably have never told you that. So I'm going to tell you this right now. thank you for everything that you did for me. You are as good as it gets in this game. Like, you are a good guy. You have a good heart, and you love the kids, and your intentions are right. And I hope everybody listens to this and understands your heart the way that I feel like I do. So you're my friend. I'm proud of you. I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you did for me. And I'll let you say where we can find any information on 3D baseball. Is there any plugs that you want to give real quick before we end it?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, obviously, for having me here. Like, this is awesome. I'm glad that you're doing this. I think that you've had some really good guests. There's a lot of good knowledge being dropped out there. I think that's awesome. And you've always been nothing but a great friend to me. Also, I really do really appreciate the friendship that we've had. Although I haven't seen you in a while, we can just pick up and
that's right.
Just get after it. And I do appreciate our friendship. We are on Twitter at 3D Baseball. Or X, whatever it's called these days. Same way with Instagram. I do have Coach Dax on Instagram. I don't do a ton of social media stuff, but I am, we're working towards doing a lot more of that, just so we can kind of put out there, hey, this is what we're doing with 3D Baseball. If you want to come be a part of it, we'd love to have you up here.
Awesome. I'm going to say this. If the folks that are listening to this, if you're in North Texas and you're in the Grayson County area, Northern Collin County area, Dax Powell, if you can't find him, send me a DM, look me up. I'm going to get you in contact with this guy. You want your kids around this guy. You want your kids learning from this guy. He's one of the best. Dax Powell, thank you for being on the Baseball Forward podcast, my friend. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, man.